that the CSP, the Bucks County CSP, noted race hatred, anarchy, and anti-Americanism. And I know that you're saying that's a hell of an accusation. It is, but I'm going to show that it's based in fact. On April 11th, CSP showed, and now this was funded by NAMI, Bucks County, and CSP, okay, this event here, and it was the showing of the movie Walking While Black, which is designed to promote and encourage the war on police, which is essentially a war on the American public, and I'm going to move on and show that. As I had previously shown, this is a community support program invitation of Bucks County. This is the CSP meeting, and it makes use of communist symbolism, as you can see by the communist fist in the middle there. Okay? Now, moving on. As I have already shown, you will see that these are other organizations: Black Lives Matter, the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, the Jewish Defense League, and Antifa. All organizations known for violence, all organizations that use the same or similar symbol. These are the 2016 demands of Black Lives Matter. End the war on black people. Reparations, divest, invest, economic justice, okay, community control, political power. We're going to get back to that. So this is a summary of the movie Walking While Black, which attempts to... So this is Black Lives Matter and their agenda. They did have an agenda, as I proved with the interview with, I believe it was Miss Patrice Cullors. So it has been nearly 2 years since the killing of Michael Brown by a police officer in Ferguson, Missouri, blah, blah, blah. Movement of Black Lives Matter under a catch-all banner of Black Lives Matter. And a plan titled A Vision for Black Lives Policy Demands for Black Freedom and Justice. Okay, and we're going to look at that right here. Okay. So, number one, they want to end the war on black people. Now, I would argue that there is not a war on black people. The only racial group that it is the law that you must discriminate against them is heterosexual white men. Okay, and that is affirmative action. Affirmative action states that you absolutely must, by law, discriminate against heterosexual white men. That's the law, okay? It says that you have to favor blacks, Hispanics, other minorities, and women. Women, incidentally, are not a minority, and women over white men, okay? So that's important to understand. The law states that you must, if you're an employer with, I believe it's 15 employees or more, you absolutely 100% must discriminate against white men. And there's also instances in education, hiring, promotion, etc., where you must discriminate against white men. Okay, they want reparations for the past and continuing harms. Okay. Now, the thing with this is, the problem with the reparations for past and continuing harms is, the people responsible for those harms have been long dead. The descendants of the people that were harmed have not been personally harmed. Okay? So the problem is, you want to hold people responsible for things that they couldn't have done because they weren't alive, and you want to give reparations to people that have not been harmed because they weren't alive at the time. Now, the continuing harms, yes, I fully believe, that if it is proven that somebody was harmed by law enforcement, or some other way that's, framed in the law, they should have a valid grievance, and they should be compensated for that grievance. And that's what we have a justice system for. So they want divestment from the institutions that criminalize, cage, and harm black people, and investment in the education, health, and safety of black people. Okay, number one, I actually agree with this. I think they need to completely stop all private prisons. I agree with that. Now, that's what I consider it. Okay, I think all private prisons should not be allowed in the United States. I also don't believe in private police forces, and I don't believe in mercenary forces. I think that the only way you can have legitimate, prison systems, military, police, etc., is if they are loyal to the republic and the community that they work in. And the only way you do that is if you are hiring people that are U.S. citizens, that aren't working for the holy dollar. They're working because they wish to serve the public. Number 4, economic justice for all and a reconstruction of the economy to ensure our communities have collective ownership, not merely access. So the problem with this is, this has been tried again and again and again. It was tried under Clinton. It just doesn't work too well. And Trump wanted to institute Deng Xiaoping economic policies that would create special economic zones, and actually did, that would create special economic zones in the inner cities that favored black business owners, as well as let tens of thousands of black criminals out of prison. Number 5, community control of the laws, institutions, and policies that most impact us. Yes, you can have that if you run for office and apply for jobs in the law stuff. And the thing is, as I said, black people and other minorities are favored for educational grants, educational acceptance, etc. In fact, there's not much keeping them from having these positions that would allow them to have control of the laws, institutions, and policies that most impact them. In fact, if I remember correctly, Clarence Thomas is a Supreme Court justice. There's a number of black congressmen and black senators, and so I don't see where they're, and a lot of the city councils are African American. I'm not understanding what they're saying here. A lot of, like, for example, a lot of the mayors of some of, like, Philadelphia has had an African American mayor, not currently, but has had an African American mayor a bunch of times. Okay, it's just the truth. A black mayor has been in control of Philadelphia. Let's see, you had Nutter, you had Street, and actually I like John Street. John Street did what he could to bring justice and law and order to the streets. The Safe Streets program. Okay, so the thing is, you got to look at things, and that's what happens when you have control. John Street knew what had to be done in order to implement. He did something very similar to what's-his-face, to Giuliani. He did something very similar to Bill Clinton. Okay, and that is, when you enforce the law, you'd be amazed how much law and order follows when you simply enforce the laws. Moving forward. Now, BLM is no longer run by the same people that founded it. They are the physical, okay. So what they are fighting for are demands. Declare racism a public health crisis in Washington State. This is BLM Seattle, I'm sorry. These are the demands for BLM Seattle, but you will see these demands are insane, especially considering the autonomous zone that was created there. Defund, demilitarize, and de-escalate the police, okay? They want to shift funding from police budgets into community services and community capital, resulting in a smaller force and more civilian jobs. Okay, so they don't want to completely get rid of the police. They want a smaller force and more civilian jobs. Now, that's changed. They originally wanted to get rid of the police entirely and replace them with community policing, in the sense, not community policing like Bill Clinton wanted, but community policing as in like vigilance committees like they had in England back in the medieval times. Removal of military equipment from the Seattle Police Department. Now, this is what's ridiculous about that. And this is how, okay, so we remove the military equipment from the police, but yet the gang members still have military-grade weapons. Okay? The gang members are not legally purchasing their weapons, and they do have military-grade weapons. Fully automatic military-grade weapons. So you disarm the police, and what happens? The police do not have a sufficient means to enforce the law. If you don't enforce the law, you don't have law and order. If you don't have law and order in these communities, the people that suffer are the people that live in these communities. A renegotiated contract with Seattle Police Officers Guild that emphasizes community oversight and accountability for officers regardless of seniority. That's actually not a bad idea. I actually agree with that one. A community-selected director of the Office of Police Accountability 2021. Okay, I don't agree with that, because I don't think the community selects the mayor, and the mayor selects the head of the police, okay? So, I mean, let's get real here. The community, you got to give the people that you elect some say in what you've elected them to do, or it's showing that you have absolutely no faith in the people that you're electing. Who do you think's electing the mayor? De-escalation training for individual officers and specialized teams. They already have that. Or at least I would assume they already have that. I know that every police force I'm aware of does. I know when I went to school for criminal justice, I was educated in triage assessment of mental illness. I was educated in how to de-escalate people. I was educated in these things. And I do know that the police in Bucks County, in the sheriff's department and the various police departments, they're educated in this, both through school, and if they didn't go to school, if they just went right into the police force, they were educated in that instance. And also, a lot of police are ex-military, so they were probably educated in this in the military, especially if they were an MP, a military police officer. So, de-escalation training for officers and specialized teams. Okay, wait. Dedicated city, county, and state resources to address hate and bias crimes, especially against the LGBTQ plus and BIPOC residents. Now, most police agencies, and I would assume Seattle, does have special hate crimes departments. That's a fact. I don't know if Seattle does, but I know literally most police stations, most police departments do. I would find it very hard to believe that Seattle doesn't. They want an end to cash bail. Yes, but that's ridiculous, because the fact of the matter is, if you read the Constitution, the whole basis of bail. Now, I would say this. What they should say is they should want an end to unreasonable bail, which is constitutional. I don't think that if somebody's shit broke, that the bail should be set at like $72 million. Okay, it just doesn't make sense. Release of those in Seattle and Washington incarcerated for marijuana-related offenses with related convictions expunged. The reason I don't agree with this is because, as we know from the Biden crime bill, when you arrest people that commit marijuana-related offenses, you're arresting people that have committed violent offenses, usually. And we know that because the violent crime goes down when you put these people in prison. Fund community health. They already do this. Now, do I think there might need to be more funding for community health? Yeah, I think so. But it's already funded. What do you think Planned Parenthood is? What do you think the clinics are? Okay, the public clinics, these are funded. end Washington state voter suppression, I think you would first have to prove there is voter suppression. They demand people who are in jail or prison have the right to register and vote in the state of Washington. They demand an end to the conviction poll tax that prevents people from voting or owing fines. Well, the thing is, and I think this is absolutely ridiculous. So you demand that the law not be enforced, okay? And they're calling it a poll tax. It's not a poll tax. If you owe fines, you probably, in my opinion, you probably shouldn't be allowed to vote. Is that the kind of person you want having control over who takes office? I didn't know that's how it was, but I can say that I agree with Seattle there. They demand persons with a previous federal conviction have their voting rights restored. I think this is absurd. I don't believe that it should happen. I believe when you start restoring felons' rights to vote, you get the wrong people in office. They want to end youth incarceration. Well, that's wonderful. What do you do with them? What do you do with them? They want to reallocate the budget for jailing youth to education, housing, mental health, and arts programming. Number one, mental health is not proving to work at all. Number two, and I've done numerous videos on mental health and the forced drugging of people and how dangerous and how oppressive and I mean, that's the thing is, so they basically want to reallocate the budget from incarceration of people that have committed crimes to the forced drugging and poisoning of the youth. That's what they're saying, okay? Dismantle the school-to-prison pipeline. Okay, removal of police from school campuses. I don't agree with this, including student resource officers. Excuse me, but with the amount of mass shootings taking place, I actually think you need teams of specially trained officers in every school. An end to behavioral modification classification for black and brown children. So they want to fund mental health, but they don't want mental health for black and brown children. So they want to fund mental health for children, but they do not want mental health. That's what behavioral modification classification is. They don't want it for black and brown children, but yet they want to fund it. So who are they funding it for? Not their community. Student-led creation of a Students' Bill of Rights that centers the needs of black, brown, and indigenous, blah, blah, blah. Equitable and full funding for districts across the state. Free full-time preschool and kindergarten for all Washington children. I actually agree with that. I think that should be, I believe in socialized medicine. I believe in socialized education. And I actually do believe in free preschool and kindergarten. However, I also believe that the best place for a child is with the mother. That's what I think. I think that that would be better spent by helping mothers, giving mothers aid, food aid, monetary aid, rent aid, etc., so they can stay home with their children. I believe that it's most important that children, especially at the age of preschool, kindergarten, are with their mothers. I don't think they're learning very much in preschool. In fact, I know they're not. My ex-girlfriend worked in a preschool. Preschools are very abusive settings. I think these children need to be home with their mothers. Recess, PE, and music instruction. Yes, I agree. I think physical education should be mandatory. Okay, I've agreed with that. I do agree with recess, music instruction. If this is not in the public school system of Seattle, that's atrocious. So I agree with that. Technology access for all students, including one-to-one laptops for middle school and high school students by 2025. I don't agree with one-to-one laptops for middle school and high school students. I don't think that's a good way to use money. And I don't really think that funding technology is the way to go. I think that focusing on core curriculum, now technology is part of that core curriculum in this day and age, but I don't think that the taxpayer should be paying for children to have laptops. I think that what you'll see is the more technology being used in the public school system, the less well-educated the public school student is. I think you need to go back to the core curriculum. get away from this hippy-dippy bullshit. So you go back to math, science, reading, spelling, the basics, and make sure that the kids understand that. I actually don't even see a point for education to operate past the 6th or 7th grade. If you're not learning everything you need to know to survive past the 6th or 7th grade, you're probably not paying attention, or you have a really horrible place. You're going to a really terrible school. Okay, moving on. Now this is from the Holocaust Encyclopedia. This is from the Holocaust Encyclopedia, and this is the 25-point program of the National Socialists. Remember, I stated in a previous video that BLM and National Socialism are essentially one and the same. Now, what you'll notice is, aside from the 25-point program of National Socialism being more well-written, there's very great similarities, okay? They demand the union of all Germans in a greater Germany on the basis of the right of national self-determination. Okay, they demand equality of rights for the German people in dealings with other nations and the revocation of the treaties of Versailles. Does this not sound like how BLM doesn't want the laws enforced? Does this not sound like how BLM is claiming they're not being treated properly, or how when the law is enforced? They demand land and territory to feed their people and to settle their surplus population. Now, this is common amongst black separatist movements, not necessarily BLM. They only want members of the nation to be citizens. Only those of German blood, whatever their creed, may be members of the nation accordingly. No may be a member of the nation. Now, this sounds very much like BLM, in the sense that they believe that the community should control their community, should control all aspects of the greater community. For what reason? Okay, why should they have control over everyone else? And that's what they want, okay? Because when you have, and I'll go into that because they want political representation. Well, nothing wrong with political representation, but let them show the public what is keeping them from having political representation. Why are there so many black senators, black congressmen, black city council members, black mayors, black police officers? Okay, where did these black people come from that have this political and social representation? Rappers, musicians. There's a lot of black, and as I said, the only race of people that the law says you must discriminate against are heterosexual white men. Non-citizens may live in Germany as guests, okay, and must be subject to the laws for aliens. As you can see, the National Socialists are actually far more liberal, far more accepting of people that aren't like them, as they're saying these people can live there as guests and be subject to laws for aliens. Now, in a way, that's what BLM's saying, is they want to control the laws, they want to control the structure of government, they want to control everything, and anyone else living there, like, for example, in the Seattle Autonomous Zone, the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, anybody trapped in that Autonomous Zone was subject to laws for aliens, despite the fact that it was illegally seceded from the rest of Washington State. And yet the National Guard wasn't called up. It should have been. The right to vote on the state's government and legislation shall be enjoyed by the citizens of the state alone. They demand, therefore, that all official appointments of whatever kind, whether in the Reich, in the states, or in the smaller localities, shall be held by none but citizens. So this is similar to what BLM is saying, is they want to control everything, and nobody else should have the right to enforce the laws. Nobody else should have the right to do anything that they claim is oppressing them. They oppose the corrupting parliamentary custom of filling posts merely in accordance with party considerations and without reference to character or abilities. Now again, you'll see, National Socialism goes a step further in making sense. They demand that the state shall make its primary duty to provide a livelihood for the citizens. If it should prove impossible to feed the entire population, foreign nationals, non-citizens, must be deported from the Reich. So this is similar in the sense that they want all this funding for community this and community that. The difference is, in pre-National Socialist Germany, this stuff wasn't funded. It had to be taken up, and the Communist Party, the Christian Socialist Party, and the National Socialist Party had to go around with collections and feed the poor. Because the government wasn't doing it, the political parties had to do it. All non-German immigration must be prevented. We demand that all non-Germans who entered the country after the 2nd of August 1914 be required to leave the Reich forthwith. Now, what's interesting about this is not necessarily how BLM views it, but this is how BLM views their desire to be separate from the rest of society. Number 9, all citizens shall have equal rights and duties. Again, this is similar to BLM. 10, it must be the first duty of every citizen to perform physical or mental work. Now, of course, that's not something that BLM would have. The activities of the individual must not clash with the general interest, but must proceed within the framework of the community and be for the good, for the general good. Now, that's actually not in BLM's concept, because BLM doesn't necessarily agree with working. The abolition of incomes earned by work, the breaking of the slavery of interest. So they want to get rid of all interest. This is similar to the concept of getting rid of the bail slavery, what they're considering to be bail or a poll tax. In the view of enormous sacrifices of life and property demanded of a nation by any war, personal enrichment from war must be regarded as a crime against the nation. Now, keep that in mind. This is important that you understand. This is, again, making more sense than BLM. But what they're saying is any enrichment from war, meaning if you were getting wealthy off of war, if you were a war profiteer, you were committing treason. They demand the nationalization of all businesses which have been formed into corporations. This is, again, similar to BLM demanding funding for their own businesses, for their own entrepreneurship and things like that. They demand, which actually does take place, mind you. They demand profit sharing in large industrial enterprises. They demand the extensive development of insurance for old age. So that would be like Social Security and other benefits. That would be like reparations. Okay, that's demanding for reparations. Except, of course, we already have that in this country. They demand the creation and maintenance of a healthy middle class, the immediate communalization of big department stores and their lease at cheap rate to small traders, and that the utmost consideration shall be shown to all small traders. They demand a land reform suitable to their national requirements, the passing of a law for the expropriation of land for communal purposes, kind of like the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, without compensation, the abolition of ground rent and prohibition of all speculation in land, similar to the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone that was erroneously taken from the state of Washington. They demand the ruthless persecution of those of those whose activities are injurious to the common interest. Common criminals, users, profiteers, etc. must be punished with death, whatever their creed or race. Now, this is very similar to the way that BLM views anybody that is, quote, racist, or anybody that's a police officer. They demand that Roman law, which serves the materialistic world order, be replaced by German common law. The state, now that's similar to BLM wanting to control the structure of law and the implementation of law. The state must consider a thorough reconstruction of the national system of education, with the aim of opening up every able and hardworking German the possibility of higher education and thus obtaining advancement. The curricula of all educational establishments must be brought into line with the requirements of a practical life. This is completely in sync with BLM's concepts of wanting to reform education. The aim of the school must be to give the pupil, beginning with the first sign of intelligence, a grasp of the notion of the state, meaning the community. Through the study of civic affairs, they demand the education of gifted children of poor parents, whatever their class or occupation, at the expense of the state. Okay, the state must ensure that the nation's health standards are raised by protecting mothers and infants. Now, this is ridiculous because, in a sense, this is what BLM wants, but what BLM has is this already. But where this comes in would be the free daycare. Well, I think that the National Socialists make a better argument. Children belong with their mother. Okay? But they also want legislation providing compulsory gymnastics, sports, and extensive support of clubs engaged in the physical training of youth. Again, this is like physical education, recess, etc., and I agree with that. They demand the abolition of the mercenary army and the formation of a people's army. They demand legal warfare on deliberate political mendacity and its dissemination in the press to facilitate the creation of a German national press. So this is similar to BLM claiming that they're being misrepresented by the mainstream media and by mainstream people. So they want all editors and contributors of newspapers appearing in German language must be members of the nation, that no non-German newspapers may appear without the express permission of the state, that non-German shall be prohibited by law from participating financially in or influencing German newspapers. The publishing of papers which are not conducive to the national welfare must be forbidden. They demand the legal prosecution of all those tendencies in art and literature which corrupt the national life. Now, this is similar to BLM wanting to fund the reverse of this. They want to fund destructive and perverted art. They demand freedom from all religious for all religious denominations. Okay, so they want freedom for all religious denominations in the state, provided they do not threaten its existence, meaning the existence of the state, nor offend the moral feelings of the German race. The party as such stands for positive Christianity, but does not commit itself to any particular denomination. It combats the materialist spirit within and without us, and is convinced that their nation, the German nation, can achieve permanent health only from within. This is similar to BLM. They believe that the black community can only achieve their health from within. To put the whole of this program into effect, they demand the creation of a strong central state power for the Reich, the unconditional authority of the political central parliament over the entire Reich and its organization, and the formation of corporations based on estate and occupation. Okay, moving forward. So this is a black separatist group, black nationalist militia. Part of the militia movement in the United States. It's the Not Effing Around Coalition. It advocates for black liberation and black separatism. It has been described by news. Now, why am I bringing this up? Well, because this organization was marching. I believe it was, it'll probably tell me later in the article, but they were marching during the BLM riots. It denies any connection to the Black Panther Party or BLM. However, what you have to understand is all of this is connected. It's all connected. Okay? So it establishes, motives established to protect, self-police, and educate black communities on firearms and their constitutional rights. This is kind of like that gun club. Oh my gosh, I forget the name of it. And I'm not against law-abiding black citizens owning firearms. I'm not against law-abiding citizens owning firearms, okay? I'm pro-Second Amendment to an extent. I don't agree that the mentally ill should have firearms. People that are blatantly mentally ill or people that are drug users, I believe that we need to amend the Constitution for that. But I'm not against law-abiding citizens owning firearms. I do think people with chronic alcoholism and that are, a threat to themselves or others probably should not have firearms. So, John Fitzgerald Johnson, also known as Grandmaster J, blah, 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 black nationalist. Now, what's funny is that he calls himself Grandmaster J. Now, that sounds an awful lot like the Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. You know what I mean? Like, these titles, activities. The first reported appearance of the Not Effing Around Coalition members was, here we go. It was a protest near Brunswick, Georgia, over the February murder of Ahmaud Arbery, though they were identified by local media as Black Panthers. So they were misidentified by the media. That's because of the gun club, I believe, was affiliated, Huey Newton Gun Club, I think, but I don't want to say that because I don't want to get it wrong. Johnson stated that the Not Effing Around Coalition provided armed security for the sister of Rayshard Brooks. At her request, the Not Effing Around Coalition escorted her to a rally in downtown Atlanta. On the 4th of July, 2020, local media reported that 100 to 200 mostly armed Not Effing Around Coalition members marched through Stone Mountain Park near Georgia, calling for the removal of Confederate monuments. Now, what's funny is, I actually agree that these monuments should never been put up. You don't put up monuments to enemies of your country. The Confederacy were enemies of this republic. You don't put up monuments to the enemies of the republic. Reuters reported the number of participants. Now, however, I don't agree with harming the statues or tearing them down yourself like BLM did. These are private and public property. The Stone Mountain Memorial Association, which operates the park, stated that the protesters were peaceful and orderly. Johnson stated of the site, blah, 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 blah. Okay, on July 25th, a local news outlet stated that more than 300 members were gathered in Louisville, Kentucky to protest the lack of action against officers responsible for the killing of Breonna Taylor. The Not Effing Around Coalition posted a video of the event on its official YouTube page, yada, yada, yada. October 3rd, you see they keep growing, over 400 members of the Not Effing Around Coalition with over 200 other armed protesters that weren't them. So 600 armed people. Okay, now imagine if 600 armed neo-Nazis or white separatists marched in downtown Lafayette, Louisiana. Do you think they would have been met with some resistance? Do you think the National Guard might have been called out? I think probably. This demonstration was sparked after United States Representative Clay Higgins made threats against protesters who showed up armed regarding the shooting of Trayford Pellegrin at the hands of police. Johnson, along with other speakers, gave speeches, blah, 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 blah. June 23rd, former Not Effing Around Coalition member Othal Ozone Wallace shot and critically wounded a Daytona Beach Police Department officer, Jason Raynar, in the head whilst he was conducting a proactive patrol. He then attempted to disable the body cam worn by the officer. Okay, now what's funny is I believe that all police officers should have body cams. I think it makes for honesty. I do believe that any cop that uses any type of unlawful force, any type of stopping of people that don't deserve to be stopped, regardless of their race or gender or anything or national origin, I believe that police that are behaving in an abusive manner need to be put in prison. Okay, that's where they need to go. Okay, not let off the force, be put in prison. Okay, that's where police that break the law and are abusive of their badge need to go, is prison. Moving on.